So while you do that, I'm going to go over a few last-minute tips since we're nearing the end of class. So these are just some last-minute tips and advice about how to be professional, just some things to remember. So the first one is you're going to want to be careful what your email address is. So it might be time to retire something if you have it like ilovecats43@hotmail.com, right? You want to make sure that your email address isn't embarrassing or isn't old, outdated. Make sure it's a little bit more professional, maybe something with your name, something a little bit less immature or childish if you still have the email that you've been using when you were 13. Especially when you're sending an email to like a prospective employer, right? So if you're sending like a resume, you want to make sure your email isn't something embarrassing. And then next, spell check. Be spell check. Spelling mistakes and typos can come off as unprofessional and show a lack of care for the work at hand. So again, these are all really important when you're sending like a resume or a CV to a potential employer, because typos and mistakes just mean you don't care. And that can come off as a really, really negative thing for potential employers. And then as we discussed before, try to avoid using all caps and excessive punctuation. Always make sure that you're using correct grammar, uppercase and lowercase. So that means not all uppercase and not all lowercase either. And simple punctuation, and only if you need it. Any other thing? If you write lots of emails for work, and there's, for example, a really frustrating email, like someone responded rudely, or if there's a really big problem or issue at work and it's a really hard thing to deal with, my recommendation is that if you have an emotional investment in the email, it's best to either to write it and then walk away without sending it, and then come back and proofread it later. Because it's really important to keep in mind that emails can be interpreted very differently, right? So this is one of the points of this class, right? Is ways to be very polite and very formal, because you never know what other people could be interpreting from your email if you use all caps or if you are really direct, right? A lot of things can be perceived as rude, even if you didn't mean them to be. So especially if there's something that's really frustrating, you're going to want to take the time to take a break, walk away, and then come back and double check that you're not coming off as super rude, super mean, whatever you want to do. And then the last one on this slide is something that I actually do all the time. So make sure that the attachments are attached. So especially if you're sending a CV or resume, make sure they're actually on the email. So a lot of times, so I used to work, I worked in an office, in a publishing office, when I was going to university, and many times I would say, you know, the email subject would be like page proofs, and then it would be like, oh, it's attached, and I would forget to attach the attachments. So it's really important that if you're attaching things, you remember to attach what you're attaching.
Okay.
Yeah. So Anatoly, how are you doing with the exercise?
I wrote.
Good. Okay. Could you paste it into the chat window or just read it out loud?
1 second.
Good. Okay. Could you read it?
About meeting on Tuesday. Dear Mr. Smith, good morning. I write you because we planned the meeting on Tuesday. It could be good if we could meet in the hall number 5. Please let me know what time could be appropriate for this meeting. Sincerely yours, Anatoly.
Good. Okay, good. So the only thing that I would say is you're missing a preposition for I'm writing to you. Writing to you because we plan the meeting on Tuesday. And then for please let me know what time could be appropriate for this meeting. I would just say please let me know what time would be appropriate. So just a difference for would be instead of could be, because if you're talking about hypothetical situations in the future, you're going to want to use would. Because could is the past tense of can. Although you can use it, it's not technically wrong, but I think it sounds a little bit better if you use would. That's it. Otherwise, great job.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go over the last 2 or 3 tips I've got, and then we'll end class. So before I go over the last few tips, how are you guys doing? Any questions? Any doubts so far? Fernando first.
Well, no, everything is okay. Just maybe about the tips that you gave a few minutes ago. Well, it says, okay, a formal name for your email address is okay, but sometimes maybe you cannot avoid to use numbers because your name or whatever you are putting there, it's already being used. So,
Oh no, that's fine. I just mean like I've talked to people, to recruiters that have gotten emails from people that are like, no, the problem isn't the numbers, it's the words, right? So if it's like surf dude, word up, like there's no surf, like surf dude, just like really informal things, like can come off as bad to your employers. The numbers is not a problem at all.
okay.
Yeah, just to avoid like silly nicknames. Like I'm trying to think of one. I've heard some like stories of people that send like resumes to like big companies, to CEOs, and their emails are something ridiculous. So just to keep in mind that like people are going to look at what your email is when you send them your resume. That's all.
Okay. Nice. It's good to know.
Anything else? Any other questions?
No, just that.
No, just that. Okay. What about you, Anatoly? Any questions so far?
No questions.
No.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to pull up the last few tips I've got. Okay. So in a work setting, make sure you know the difference between reply and reply all. So this can make for some embarrassing situations if you're not sure. So make sure the email is only going to the recipients that you want it to go to, right? So if you get an email that's sent to you and 15 other employees, and it's like, asking for your lunch order, you don't want to reply to all 15 people being like ham and cheese sandwich. Like make sure that you're replying just to the person that you need to reply to. And then if you're forwarding an email, make sure you include an explanation and description of why you're forwarding it, because otherwise forwarded emails without a message can just look like spam and not be taken seriously. And then lastly, remember that if you have a work email or are writing emails on company property, that you represent the business you're working for. So this means you want to avoid sending highly sensitive or personal emails under your company's name, and always keep in mind that your actions reflect either positively or negatively on the business itself. So this is especially a big deal if you get an email that's like for example, my email is like michelle.linguistiko@gmail, right? So it has the company's name and my name on my emails. So I always have to keep in mind that it's not just me, or it's not just my email, right? That I work for a company and that their image is at stake as well. So that's it. So thank you so much, both of you, for coming to class today. I hope it was helpful. And I hope to see you both in another Linguistiko class. My next class is today at 10 p.m. Buenos Aires time, which depends on what time zone you're in, and it's about stories in the news. So before I've given a class called Stories in the News that focuses on active and passive constructions. So this is a part 2 to that. So you don't have to have had the first class, but it focuses, we're going to read different reports, different news reports, watch some news videos, and talk about the passive voice and how to make the passive voice in English. So that's my next class. Thank you so much for coming.